Mm-hmm. We are live. We'll let people start tuning in a little bit. Got one viewer already.
Yeah. All right, are we live?
Yep.
Looks like there's some folks joining already. Hi, everybody.
I'm about 5 seconds behind you
Okay.
in delay. Just you now waving.
So for anybody that's already joining us, thanks for joining us. We're going to get started right at 6 o'clock, but we wanted to hop on a little early to make sure there's no snafus and that you guys can hear me well and see everything clearly. So, so you're going to do the next one, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
See what the people want.
What do you think after this?
I'm not doing dry flies, I can tell you that.
I think the next step is like beat-headed dimps.
Matt Philippi. I can hear you great.
Matt is on.
Yep.
What's up, Matt?
I use some of those dubbing brushes. The nymph brushes.
Yeah. Matt, you forgot one critical material when you came the other day. Guide beer. It's the most important piece of tying tackle.
It can help. Or can make you think it's helping. Every now and then you get on forums, like musky tying forums, and someone's like, had a few too many to drink last night, and there's like a whole neck on one fly.
Yeah.
Like, a little ambitious.
Tied a whole bucktail one
Yeah.
of your clouser. All right. How we doing?
Oh, he said he's got one in his Yeti holster right now.
There we go. Good.
Now we're
Good.
talking.
Suzanne wants to know how the Facebook Live works. She said, does it just come up on your page?
Yep.
All right.
Tell him to ask questions.
Huh?
Tell him about questions.
All right. So for everybody that's tuning in, we're going to get started in a few minutes. You guys can ask questions. So Nick Sechrist is my production guy. He's here behind the scenes. So he's working Messenger. So you can type in questions. Some of them he'll just answer via the keyboard. Some of them he may ask out loud, and I can share an answer as I tie along. So feel free to ask questions. To stop me a little bit if you need to. We can back up, but I plan on tying these flies a couple times. So how we doing?
Doing good.
Good.
I'm gonna go downstairs and get a charger just in case. I'm just gonna plug it in. But you're good.
All right, we'll get started in about 2 more minutes. We'll give folks a chance to get on, to get started. I need this guide beer going. Gotta give a shout out to Sweetwater Brewery. They've been sending us beer in the mail. It's like they know. It's like they know us. All right. We ready?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get started. Thanks for joining us this evening. So we're going to be doing, I'm going to give you a little update on what's to come. Obviously, we're all being challenged with situations where we can't get together and do beginner fly tying classes. We can't get together and do our typical Vice Club. So we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff through Facebook Live and other channels and stuff. So we wanted to start off with something easy and simple. There's a lot of folks in the last couple weeks in particular that have started tying flies for the first time or getting back to it after years of not doing it. And in addition to that, there's customers of ours that swore they would never tie flies, and after finding themselves stuck in quarantine for the last 2 weeks have decided that they're going to go ahead and do it. So we wanted to start off with some beginner flies tonight. For those of you who are big Vice Club attendees and want some technical stuff, that'll be coming. All right. So if you're just tuning in because you missed me, then I miss you too, and you can watch and you can watch me tie worms and retrievers. So, but tonight will be fundamentals, and we're going to focus on just getting folks started. So I know there's a lot of people out there like my wife and myself who have kids that are at home, and they're going to be at home for the next 5 months. And so there's a lot of parents that have reached out to us that want to help teach their kids how to tie flies. And so hopefully this is for you all. This is for the people who are just getting started. So anyway, tonight, 2 very simple patterns, but really effective. And for those of you who fish a lot, hopefully you recognize these and hopefully you use these. So a lot of people say the woolly bugger should be the first fly ever tied, but we're going to go even simpler than that. We're going to tie a squirmy worm. So basically a modern San Juan worm. All right. So let's get started. And again, for those of you just joining us, you can ask questions. Nick is behind the scenes to answer them on Messenger, and I can answer them too. If you type them in, he can read them aloud. So let's get started. Squirmy worm, very basic. You essentially have one material, which is I like my buddy Dave Heiss at Casters. He's got the Squirmito, which is basically like a San Juan worm, but really plasticky and rubbery and flexible. And unlike your standard ultra chenille, it moves and swims with the current in the water. So all we need to do simply is attach this worm to the hook. So let's get started. The hook is not super important. You can use a couple different sizes. You can use size 10, you can use size 12. I like Orvis's tactical barbless hooks. This is such an awesome fly that, if the fish take it in a little bit, it's nice to have a hook that doesn't have a barb. So I'm going to be using a heavyweight 3X hook, which is also nice because it gives it a little bit more weight. And this fly can have a hard time sinking sometimes. So we're going to get our hook set in our vise. I know everybody's got different vices. I've been tying on this vise since I was 12 years old. This is my trusty Renzetti travel vise. So get your hook in the vise, get it in nice and flat, okay? And we're gonna get started. I'm using flat wax thread. You can use a lot of different threads, all right? It is nice to match the thread to the color of your material, but if you don't have that, the fish aren't going to be too terribly picky. Just find the closest color that'll match, and we'll get started. So I've got flat wax fluorescent orange, and we're going to get our thread started on our hook. Okay, so first steps to tying a fly is getting control over your bobbin. Okay, and that's what we're going to work on. Not having too much thread out, and being able to take slow, controlled wraps. Okay, not too much pressure. You don't want the hook to pop out. You don't want to break your thread. So the first fundamentals you're going to work on in fly tying is literally controlling the pressure and controlling the speed of your thread wraps. So to get your thread started, we can simply lay the thread on the hook and begin to take wraps over top of it. And for this particular fly, I like to lay a base of thread up and down the hook shank, and that'll keep the material from rolling, and it'll kind of conceal the color of your hook and match it. So this is where you can practice, all right? You can see I'm just slowly wrapping my thread forward along the hook shank, one right in front of another. Notice I don't have too much thread and taking these big wraps. Hopefully my kids are watching, Sawyer and Mason and Layla.
Suzanne didn't make it in.
And hopefully they're watching, and I've been working on this with them, right? Controlled wraps, not big loops, not speed is not a critical skill when it comes to fly tying, boys, okay? Slow, methodical wraps. So I've kind of worked the thread all the way up. I'm working it back. And this is how you need to start. Practice moving the thread up and back, taking even wraps. Okay, if there was a barb on this hook, I would come back and stop my thread where the barb is, okay? And then, just like you're gonna do so often in fly tying, you need to trim your excess material. In this case, it's just the thread. So pull, apply pressure, lay your scissors flat against it, and give it a cut. And that'll help you keep from having tag ends hanging out, okay? So here we are. We've threaded the hook. The next step is to attach our materials. All right, I'm gonna leave a really long worm on here, okay? So we're gonna tie. If you get these casters, Squirmitos, they come already cut to a certain length, okay? And I like to leave not just these worms, I like to leave all flies a little bit long, okay? Particularly with materials that you can cut yourself. So not like wings on a dry fly or things like that, but things that you can cut yourself. And you can always trim this up on the creek if you need to. The longer this thing is, the more action that it has, okay? So one of the techniques we're gonna work on to start is gonna be pinching technique. You pinch the material between your fingers and you pinch your thread. And one of the biggest challenges for beginners is materials rolling around to the other side of the hook shank, okay? And that goes for tons of different materials, but especially this right here. It wants to roll, it wants to stretch, it doesn't want to sit on top. And we want this material to lay right on top of our hook, okay? So I'm gonna leave quite a bit of tail, okay? You wanna kind of tie this thing on so you have close to the same amount of material on the back as well as the front of the hook, okay? So, gonna get my bobbin. I'm going to mark where I want this thing to lay, and I'm going to pinch with my left hand. I'm gonna pinch the material on top of the hook. I'm gonna bring my thread up between my fingers, pinch it, and pull it straight down, okay? And I'm really not going to let go of it just yet. I'm gonna take another wrap, maybe 2 more wraps, okay? And then what you wanna do is put what we call an anchoring thread wrap in. So I'm gonna go right in front of my material and take an anchoring wrap, okay? And now if you look at that, can you see that all right, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a rib. That's the tie that I have on the rear of the hook, okay? Shoot some questions if you have them. Pinch the material, pinch the thread, pull straight down. If you pull too hard, it will try and roll. If you aren't pinching enough, it will definitely roll, okay? Take 2 or 3 wraps and then tighten it a little bit and then go right in front. Now, I'm going to advance my thread a little bit forward and I'm going to take another wrap, okay? So again, pinch the material, come straight down with your thread, take 2 or 3 securing wraps, and then take your anchoring wrap right in front. And you can see how I'm creating like a little bit of a segment, okay? And all the material is laying across the top of the hook. You're halfway through. Time for some guide beer.
Your boys are watching. Make sure they don't get that step. We got someone tuning in from the Philippines and Portugal.
Portugal and the Philippines are watching. Excellent. Hey, Sawyer and Mason. Hope you guys are paying close attention. Okay. All right, let's continue. We're just going to advance our thread. A couple wraps. Same thing. Come in with your left hand. Pinch. Pull straight down. Take a couple securing wraps. And then anchor it right in front. Okay? So there you go. You can do 2 wraps, you can do 3 wraps, you can do 4 wraps, you can segment it as much as you want. There's no rules, okay? But I'm going to leave plenty of room from my last wrap to the eye of the hook so that I can tie this off, all right? We're not going to get into whip finishing tonight. We're going to keep it a lot more simple. So half hitches, this is what I teach my boys. An overhand knot, slide it down to the eye. An overhand knot, slide it down to the eye. And then for beginners, this is your insurance policy. Lots of head cement, okay? So the only thing is you got this in the way. If you have a material clip, you can use the material clip to hold it back. But when you're fly tying, you're gonna have to start to learn how to use your left hand, or if you're switched around the other way, your right hand, to hold materials out of the way, all right? So we're gonna put our first overhand knot into the fly, okay? So you create a loop, and you put it over the eye of the hook. Oops, sorry. And then just come straight down. And then we're going to do another one and another one until we're tied off. And then you know what we're going to do? We're going to glue it.
Hey Brian,
Yeah.
John Zimmer asked, can you use a heavy material in your fly or like in your wraps instead of having to use split shot?
Yes. That's John. How you doing, John? Good to hear from you. You can use wire, all right? So they make wire in a whole bunch of colors. And so you can tie your wire in on the back of the worm, and you can advance that forward and use that to make ribs as well. You can use beads on worms. I just left it off of this one because we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. But wire and beads, and if you need it even heavier, you can use tungsten bead, and you can put that right on your worm. Some people will put the bead in different places to look like that segment, that fat segment on your worm. So yeah, I do everything I can to avoid split shot. All right, as a guide, split shot leads to tangling all the time. So if I can add weight to the fly, that's one of the beauties of tying your own flies, is you can make them as weighted or as light as you want. But for this one, the added weight just comes from the 3X hook. Okay, that's it. Congratulations if you're tying for the first time. You just tied your first fly, okay? You're not allowed to fish that. You have to put it in your hat and save it for when you're a famous fly tyer, all right? But after a few half hitches, I can come in right nice and close and cut my thread, okay? And I'm gonna go to my head cement and also go to my bodkin, okay? This is an important tool. A lot of bodkins, the back of it, you can use to slide your half hitches off onto the hook, okay? So if you have a hard time running the thread right down to the right spot, this is a tool that you can use. If you have dry, crusty fingers from using hand sanitizer and washing all day, this is another good tool. But essentially, if you glue your fly properly, the thread absorbs your cement and basically takes all those dozens of wraps and turns it into a piece of plastic. So we're going to move our material out of the way, and we're just going to put a drop of glue, and we're just going to touch it to the thread, and you'll see it just soak right up. If you want to, you can go another step, and you can go underneath, and you can literally lay that bead of glue across your thread wraps, okay? So there's a lot of ways to kind of make this fly a lot more sturdy. And that's it, Squirmy Worm. I'm gonna tie another one real quick.
Can you talk about a couple of the options for beginner kits and material kits? We've had a couple questions.
Yeah, all right, so for beginners, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there are so many materials out there, just like there's so many flies. And so we have looked through all these different kits that exist and have found the one that we feel like gives you the best variety and the best bang for your buck. That's this one right here. Can you see that, Nick? This is a Wopsy kit. We have a bunch of these in stock, and they're also discounted. They're on sale.
Putting the link on right now.
Nick's gonna put the link on. They're normally $110, and good old-fashioned 1998 technology. They come with a DVD, so hopefully you have a DVD player, but they come with a book too, and they've got streamers, dry flies, nymphs, the whole gamut, and they have all the tools you need. One of the most important things you'll learn in tying flies is when you start, your vise is going to be your most important tool. So the vise that comes in most of these kits is not going to be the vise that you tie with forever. You'll learn what you need, and you'll learn what you like, and then you can get into the vise, a better vise later on. So, and then as far as kits and packets, okay, so we're here at the shop every day. We're not going to leave. We're going to be here to answer questions, answer the phone, do online orders, everything else. You can call in and say, hey, I watched you tie golden retrievers last night. I'd like all the materials for it, and we'll just package it up for you and get it together. Same with the worms. So,
pick colors and all kinds of
yeah, and that's the other thing is we have lots of different colors to pick from and choose from. So I'm going to tie another worm real quick, just to kind of review, and then we're going to move on to shop favorite, which is the golden retriever. All right, so hook in the vise, get my thread started, wrap over top of your thread wraps, sorry. Get the hook shank nice and covered. Work to the back of the hook. Cut your extra material. Grab your squirmy. Something else that's important, there's a million different substitutions in fly tying. So if you're really watching YouTube videos or you've got a buddy that says, hey, here's a fly recipe, always remember that there are dozens and dozens of perfectly suitable replacements. All right, so if you don't have squirmy material at home tonight, you want to tie this fly, but you've got ultra chenille, go throw your ultra chenille on. All right, and just take a little lighter to the ends and kind of singe the ends, and that'll keep it from unraveling.
A couple of people asked about head cements melting their material.
It can. So if your head cement is melting your material, they have these materials come with different formulas. So some of them hold up, some of them don't. It also depends on what type of head cement you have. Some head cements are pretty caustic and can melt right through. If that's the case, tie really good whip finish. In fact, I'll do a whip finish on this one, so that some of you can kind of see how it works. So let's get started. Pinch the material, measure it front to back, get it kind of how you want it. You can always cut and trim off some excess later, okay? Pinch the material between your fingers, pull straight down. Keep the material from rolling. Pull it back and tie your anchoring wrap in, okay? Step one. We'll put some extra ribs on this one. Pinch your material. Pull it straight down. And then put in your anchoring wrap. Everybody with us? Everybody doing all right? Wonder if my dad's on.
I haven't seen it yet. He's probably already passed this at this point.
Yeah. Pinch your material. Pull it straight down. And then pull the material back for your anchoring wraps, okay? Now, for this one, I'm gonna do a whip finish, which is a little bit more complicated. And when I started tying flies, I was 10 years old, so I didn't have a lot of tools. I basically had my vise and my bobbin. I didn't have whip finishing tools, so I never really learned how to whip finish with the tool that well, all right? So you basically do your overhand, but then you do another one, and another one, and another one. And we will get into whip finishing in a little more detail in a later class. It's not something you have to do, but if your glue just burned your material, tie off with a good whip finish if you can. If not, just half hitch, half hitch, half hitch, and then you're good. So I would probably trim this one a little bit.
John asked what your favorite worm color for stained water is.
So believe it or not, worms are actually one of the most abundant food in our streams. So I think a lot of people who think about worms or don't like to fish these types of flies for certain reasons, they associate it with earthworms, which don't actually end up in our trout streams a lot. So aquatic worms exist like crazy. And if you do enough digging around in the rocks in your local stream, you'll find these guys. And at least locally here, most of them are tan and brown. All right, so if you want to kind of match the hatch, dig around in your local streams. But here in Virginia, a lot of our aquatic worms are brown. The San Juan color, the original red color, is popular. Hot colors are popular. Fluorescence, I mean, this is for the same fish that'll come up and eat your chartreuse strike indicator, right? Right when you think they're the smartest thing in the world. So I think personally my favorite color is going to be tan. Now, if you're asking specifically for dirty water, I don't know. I think I still fish tan. I still fish tan. So some people think fish see brighter colors better in dirty water.
I like the blood red.
Blood red, yeah. So, okay, so that's about as simple of a fly as you can tie, all right? The material is not always the easiest to work with. So if you're having trouble with this, go to some ultra chenille. It's a little bit more forgiving, and you might find that that's a little bit easier to start off with. But we're gonna take it up a notch now. We're going to switch over to a streamer. So that's technically a nymph, even though it's a worm. We're going to switch over to our favorite streamer, which is the golden retriever. Now the golden retriever doesn't have to be gold. We tie them in gold, white, root beer, peach, and pink. So I have the materials tonight to tie pink. And we're going to have a couple extra steps on this fly. So if this is your first time tying or you're really new to it, this will add a couple extra elements with hopefully not overwhelming you too much. So the hook, again, you can tie different size hooks if you like, but we typically tie size 10 4X. We also tie on size 8 3X. So if you've got a streamer hook, grab those. Okay, now one of the keys to this fly is its weight. And so we're going to definitely add some weight to this. We're going to add it with bead, and we're going to add it with lead. All right, so here's a little bit of the recipe for the fly. After the hook, we've got 5 30-second gold bead, okay, which pairs well with a size 10 hook. If you buy these Mossy Cyclops beads and you're new to this, and a lot of people have questions about what bead matches with what hook. So if you can see right here, it actually tell you on it hook size 8, 10, and 12. That means you can use all 3 of those with this bead, all right? But 10 being in the middle means it's best suited for it, all right? So if you've never dealt with these beads before, all these beads are counter drilled, okay? Meaning they've got a large opening and a small opening, okay? So just make sure you're paying attention to that when you go to put your bead on your hook. We're going to put the bead on with the small opening facing forward, all right? So you're gonna go ahead and just put it on, all right? So with the bead on the hook, we're gonna go ahead and put the hook in the vise. How are we doing, Nick? Any questions?
Good so far.
Okay, and then we're gonna add our lead, okay? And I use 0.02, but you can use bigger, you can use smaller. If it's smaller, you just take more wraps and use more of the shank. If it's bigger, you just take less wraps. So it's really no big deal. This all comes out to preference. And if you're just starting to tie flies, you'll start to learn after you fish a few, kind of how much weight you really want to put on these things. All right, so lead, very malleable, very easy to wrap and handle. Some people who tie a lot of streamers will actually buy an extra bobbin and put the lead right on a bobbin, okay? I'm just gonna take some wraps on there, and you don't even need to use scissors or anything. You can just break this stuff right off. So just like we start our thread, we'll kind of start our lead, except you're not really wrapping over top of it. You just wrap one wrap right in front of the other, okay? And I usually take about 13, 14 wraps, but again, it's all up to you. So when you want it done, you can just kind of pinch it off with your thumbnail, okay? And then I'll wrap this little tag end around. Helps if you have little fingernails. And we're gonna push the lead up into the bead. You see how it kind of sits right up in place? And that lead fits right in the back of it. And then I'll just kind of finish off this tag in with my fingers. Okay, and there you go. If you have thicker lead and you go too far back, you'll start to interfere with the gap of the hook. So that's something you want to try to avoid when you're tying flies, is you want to try to avoid taking up too much of that gap, okay? It's going to hurt your ability to hook fish. All right, so now we're ready for our thread. So you can use red is usually what we call for. This looks like a little fluorescent-y, but that's okay, we'll use it. But red flat wax is the main color that we use on these golden retrievers. So just like we did on our worm, you're gonna lay the thread across and you're gonna begin to take wraps over top of it until it's securely on there. Come in with your scissors, cut it off, and then what we're gonna do is to support the fly, all this stuff can still move forwards and backwards. You see how I just moved my bead back? We don't want that to happen after we've got our fly completely done. We want everything to sit up snug against the front. So we build what I call a dam of material, of thread, back behind that lead, okay? And that's gonna keep everything from moving backwards on the hook. And we're gonna build like a little bit of a ramp up to it. Does that make sense? Can you see that all right, Nick?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I said it looks great.
Okay. So we've got our bead on, we've got our lead on, all right? And then the other components of this fly are straightforward and simple. We're gonna have a tail, which is gonna be tied out of marabou. And then we're gonna have a body, which is gonna be S-TAS and the thread we already have on here, okay? So even easier than a woolly booger, for example, where you've got to palm or a hackle and not break it. And so this is a really tough, durable fly. You can catch 60, 70 fish on this thing if you tie it properly. It fishes all year. It fishes great all year. You can fish it as a nymph by high sticking it. You can fish it under an indicator, or you can fish it as a traditional streamer. So that's why we love these things. And a ton of different species will eat this. So if you don't live near trout and you've only got farm ponds to fish, the sunfish and the bass will eat these things right up. Steelhead will eat them. Okay, so I'm going to my marabou, and we're going to tie this one out of pink. This is woolly bugger marabou, okay? Woolly bugger marabou, fluorescent pink. So the woolly bugger marabou is a little bit more select. You'll notice when you start tying flies with different furs and feathers, a lot of companies will offer a little bit finer selection, all right? So these are select because you can see the marabou is a lot more supple, the ends are a lot more evened. We sell this in bulk as well, and the strung marabou's got plenty of good material on it, and you get more for your buck. But when I'm tying these, I like to go with the woolly bugger marabou, okay? So for a fly this small, I usually only use one feather. If you want a bigger tail, go for it, all right? You'll see a lot of different tyers have different rules for how symmetrical and the proportions of a fly, right? They'll say, oh, the tail must be this long or that long. You know, I don't really adhere to a lot of rules when it comes to streamers. I like to break them. Rules are important in dry flies. You have to have balance and they have to sit right. You don't want them rolling over. But when you're fishing something heavy under the water and retrieving it quickly, It doesn't have to have as many rules that you follow. So some people will say the tail should be the length of the fly. Some people say it should be less. Some people say it should be more, okay? I usually measure mine from the back of the bead to the back of the fly, okay? And then when you go to hold the material, after you've measured it, you simply, in your left hand, pinch the material where you want it tied on, okay? Again, my thread, just like on the last one, is gonna be back just about even with the barb, okay? So, just like our worm material, we're going to set it on top of the hook, and we're going to use our pinching technique. I'm pinching the material, and I'm pinching both sides of the hook. I bring my thread up, I pinch it between my fingers, and then I pull it straight down, and then I'm not letting go. I'm going to take 2 or 3 more securing wraps, and then cinch it down, and make sure that we're in good shape here, okay? Now, some people will just trim that tail off just like that and have a couple good securing wraps. On the golden retriever, we want to create a little bit more body. We want the body to be a little bit bigger. And so one thing that I like to do is actually leave the feather on and advance my thread forward. And not only will it give this fly bigger body, it'll make the tail stronger, right? Instead of 2 or 3 little wraps holding my marabou in place, I'm gonna have 50 wraps, all right? So when that trout comes up to short strike you and yanks on your tail, he's not gonna get a mouth full of marabou. It's not coming off, all right? So you can see how I kind of wrap that all the way up to just behind the bead, okay? Now, one of the keys to tying this is you want that red color to show through your S-tabs, okay? So when we go to wrap our S-tabs on, we don't want to have it so tight that you can't see underneath it. And so that's why we use this red color. I don't have the exact red color, but you want to take a whole bunch of wraps to begin to kind of cover up this material. And again, if you're a beginner fly tyer, taking lots of controlled wraps is a skill that you're trying to learn, okay? So you can see I take 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll kind of spool my bobbin down a little bit to give me a little slack. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, keep your bobbin up close to the fly so you've got good control. And if you look, I'm just going in and I'm trying to cover up every little piece of feather and material that's showing through and create a nice good base for my S-tabs. And you know, you guys are looking at a different side of the fly from me, but that's the beauty. If you have a rotary vise, you know, you can just every now and then turn it around, take a look at the other side, make sure that you're not missing something, okay? All right, so once you've got a really good base of thread down, then we're gonna go to our S-tabs. Are we doing good? Does anybody have any questions?
Looking good so far.
All right. Guide beer, Sweetwater Brewery. They're the best.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go to our S-tabs. I'm using some UV S-tabs, just a little bit more brilliant, right? And one of the keys to S-tabs, one of the mistakes people make is it's directional. So the fibers are wound onto the string, and actually it's not always easy to tell in any one spot, but if you look at your whole strand, you'll start to notice that the fibers are laying in one direction, okay? We want the fibers to lay back, just like on the fly, so that they're gonna be pointing towards the tail. So when I'm gonna tie a whole bunch of these, I'll find which way the material's oriented, and I'll just lay it across my lap, and that way I'm not having to figure it out each and every time. And something else that people, when they first start doing this, like to do is they like to cut off manageable lengths. Like they want to go and they want to cut a certain length on and then try and have it fit and work out just right. When you start production tying, you don't want to waste any material. And so what I do is I keep this all together in one. Okay, make sure it's pointing back. And then I'm just going to come over on the other side of my vise. I'm going to tie the tip of the S-tabs in. And you got to make sure that you're capturing the string that it's strung on and not just some of the fibers, because they'll slide right out. So make sure that you have got your string. And I'm going to kind of tie this in at a slight angle on the hook, okay? So that it's, by tying it at an angle, anything that you're going to palmer or wrap, it's already oriented so that it's ready to go around the hook, right? As opposed to straight off the back, and then it's got to make a 90-degree turn. So whenever you're going to palmer material, by already kind of tying it in at the angle in which it's about to be wrapped, it kind of orients itself better, especially on your first wrap. So tie your tag end down and advance your thread all the way to the front behind your bead. All right, and then we're going to start to palmer the Estaz. Now, one of the keys to this is using your hand, your free hand, to keep material from being trapped. Okay, so as you wrap forward, if you kind of pull back, you won't trap any of the fibers that you laid down on the wrap prior, okay? And look, this is where slow, speed, control, the right amount of pressure. Fortunately, Estaz is really strong, okay? It's pretty hard to break. A lot harder to break than, let's say, like a hackle on a feather. But this is where you have to start practicing your palmering control. And you know, if you need pliers, you can use them, but really, you should be able to do all this by hand. You're trying to keep your wraps somewhat symmetrical, and then we're gonna get up right here behind the bead, okay? And now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna kind of switch hands, and I'm gonna take my thread, and I'm gonna wrap it with my left hand. Keep tension on your Estaz until you've gotten 3 or 4 really good wraps on there, okay? All these wraps are going to be hidden. So this isn't like tying a dry fly where you're worried about everything bulking up at the head, okay? That's the nice thing about learning on streamers is you can kind of go crazy with thread wraps and not really have it penalize you anywhere. Okay, so once you have all those wraps in place, again, you're going to pull everything back. All of your wraps plus the tag end. And you're going to take a couple of thread wraps right in front. That kind of forces everything to lay back, and it gives you what we call a collar, which is that little bit of red showing right, yeah, you can see it right at the head. And we're gonna come in real close. This is where having a nice pair of scissors helps. Okay, come in really close and cut your Estaz, okay? Now, I still have a tiny, tiny little tag in there that I want to cover up. I'm going to pull materials back with my left and just take a bunch of wraps right at the head of the fly, okay? And it covers that up, okay? Covers it up.
Sawyer wants to know what the best Estaz color is.
Sawyer wants to know the best Estaz color. So the golden retriever is by far the most popular. So I think gold is probably the most. What do you think?
I like peach.
Nick likes peach. So you can go with Nick or you can go with your dad. Better choose wisely. I'll be home soon. Okay, so again, we'll do those half hitches. Okay, we'll do one. Keep your tension on it and slide your thread right down and try not to trap any of those materials that you just tied back. Okay, slide it down and give it a good tug. You'll feel it kind of cinch and seat right back up behind the bead, okay? Go in real close, give it a snip, go back to our head cement. And again, just get a nice drop on there, pull your materials back and just lay it on the thread. And you'll see it soak right up, go underneath. If you get any on your bead, you can just wipe it off real quick with your fingers. It's no big deal. But one little trout tooth can undo your whole job unless you have it cemented. Okay, so that's it. That's the retriever. Tail, body, bead head. Questions? keep sending them in. I know some of you are typing them into Nick, but if you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer it. I'm going to tie another one real quick. What time we got?
6:40.
Cool.
Doing good.
All right. Yeah, let's tie another one. Where's my stuff? Who's going to get this? Sawyer or Mason? I think Layla gets it.
Yeah, I think
Layla gets it. It's pink. She's
matches all over her outfit.
She's established pink as her. It is her color. So, all right. Back to step one. Grab your hook. Get your beads. We always do gold. You can use other color beads, but gold seems to be what we do. Make sure that you put the fine point.
Layla called it.
She called it, yeah.
Yep.
Make sure you put the fine point forward, okay, so it sits against your eye. All right. Get it in your vise. And get our wire. Thirteen, 14 wraps. Push it all up so it sits up against it and actually back in behind it. And just with your thumbnail, just kind of get it to sit and wrap. Okay? Next, we're going to get our thread. Lay the thread on, wrap it over top of itself. How's Matt doing? Matt, how you doing? And then we're going to build our dam, right? Wrapping thread. Is Zimmerman on?
He was earlier.
Yeah?
Until right now.
We can tell him this is a good steelhead. You can use this for steelhead, especially pink. You can use this for steelhead. He'll have steelhead in his rivers probably right now.
Don't sleep on fishing this fly for brook trout either.
Yeah, great brook trout fly. All right, build your dam so that your lead wraps and your bead head are all locked in. Take your thread back to the barb. Go to your marabou. Find a nice piece. I'm going to pick out one that's not quite as nice, and then I'm going to show you a trick, okay? So you see this one here? It's a little bit more pointed, a little bit pointier. We're going to use it anyway, okay? Kind of do some quick measuring, see about how long you want it, and then mark that spot with your left hand, pinch, and pull straight down. Take 3 or 4 wraps, tighten it, and secure it. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to hold the marabou along the top of the hook, and we're going to wrap forward to help make the body of the fly larger and to make the tail stronger. Okay? Once you're up close to the bead, give it a cut, and now it's time to cover up all that feather. All right, working back and forth. And this is what a good flat wax wet thread will help you do this even quicker, as opposed to rayon threads. Flat threads cover more surface area, and they help grab a hold of these a lot better. And they don't roll. So flat threads are nice. They don't roll forward and backwards very easily. All right. Okay, I've got most of those little fibers covered up. Now look, you see how this thing's a little bit uneven? Like my tail doesn't look as good as the last one, right? So in fly tying and using natural fibers such as feathers and quills and things of that nature, you want that tapered, pointy end, right? In general, that's what you want. That's why we use natural stuff in certain circumstances. So, you know, when you have a beautiful pointy wing on a mayfly, you don't want to go in with scissors and trim it flat. But Marabou is pretty interesting. You can achieve a little bit more symmetric tail, not by using your scissors, but you can go in here and see some of those longer ones, and you just use your fingernail and just kind of pinch them out. And you can see how it evens my tail up without kind of taking away from the look that you're looking for. So I use pretty much all my Marabou, and I've never caught less fish on one after kind of pinching it off to make it a little bit more symmetrical. All right, I still have my S-Taz laying in my lap with the proper direction facing the rear of the fly. Coming in at an angle, tying it on my hook at an angle, pinch, take your wraps, pin it all down, advance your thread to the front, and start to wrap your S-Taz, pulling the material back out of the way for each wrap. And remember, you're spacing these wraps out enough that that red material is showing through. Okay? That's super important. Keep good tension. Get up to the head. And I switch hands. I keep my tension on with my right hand. Come in with my bobbin. And I'm going to make 1, 2, usually 4 wraps with this material is enough to hold it in place. Pull everything back out of the way. Take some wraps in front to build that collar. Okay? Come in, put some tension on your S-Taz. Cut it up nice and close to the hook. And if you've got a little bit of a tag end sitting there, you can trap it with a few more wraps. And then we're gonna go in and finish it off. Come in. All right, and then last step is head cement. So now I got a problem because I got 3 kids and I got 2 flies. I think I just throw them on the floor and see what happens.
For sure.
Or somebody's gonna get worms.
Brian, is it true that you one time saw a muskie try and eat a root beer retriever?
Actually, I did. Who asked that?
I just thought of it.
Oh.
That was a pretty cool story people should hear about.
I did. He actually ate it. Yeah. So you can catch pretty much, we didn't land anything. The muskie was only this big. But nobody cares about that. You don't talk about how big your muskie is. You just say, I caught a muskie. And that's
Just
it.
hold your arms out.
All right, so that's a golden retriever. Quite simple. We went from going to tying a nymph with just one material to tying a streamer with a few materials. All right, and this is how you need to progress with your fly tying. We're gonna come up with some more flies over the next couple weeks. We're gonna keep doing these beginner and introductory fly tying lessons. But we're also going to start Vice Club back up. So we'll be doing some sessions with some pretty technical stuff. And I would encourage all of you who are beginners, don't be afraid to tune in to some of the technical stuff. I've been tying flies most of my life, and it's amazing how you learn from watching everybody, not just the folks that are better than you, but even new folks. A little technique, a little different way to hold something. Those are the tricks that are usually attained simply by watching over and over again and watching different people. So, and we'll be having different people teach this. So I'll teach a few more beginner ones. Nick's going to teach some, and we're going to bring some of our guide staff through. These guys obviously aren't on the water as much as they'd like to be, but they love tying flies, and they're taking advantage of this time to fill their boxes. And so they're going to be happy to join with you all online. So anyway, if you have more questions, you can email. You can message right now. I'll stay on for a few more minutes. If not, after that, feel free to email or call the shop at any time. And for all you parents out there who have little ones at home, there's really no age that's too young to start them. But typically by 10 years old, they can make their way through one of these flies pretty well. So if you need help getting your young ones to tie flies, or you need kits, or you need advice, call or email the shop, because it is an awesome hobby. They can do it their whole life. It's creative, it's productive. There's really nothing more satisfying than catching a fish on something that you yourself created and that nobody else in the world may even have. So good indoor activity to do on days where you can't be fishing, or during seasons where it's a little bit too nasty out to fish. So I want to thank everybody for joining in tonight, and give us input. Send us some emails, let us know what else you'd like to see, and we'll try our best to take care of everybody. So stay healthy, stay safe. Are there any last questions, or have you got it?
Good.
I'd like to thank Nick for bringing me this nice cold guide beer, and for helping out with production tonight, and we'll catch you guys soon. Take care.